I always ask the client, what do you want? Do you want a PR at the end of, let's for example, Hong Kong in this case, you want to get a permanent residency, so you were able to qualify to apply for a Hong Kong passport, or you just wanted to have a residency, give you the access easy in Hong Kong. Totally different, right?
The Global Passport Investor is your go-to podcast. All right, well, welcome to the latest episode of the Global Passport Investor. I'm your host, Eric Major, an investment migration veteran with 3 decades in the game. I'm also the founder and executive chairman of the Latitude Group, where our client expects the world and we deliver it. On this podcast, we discuss the wonderful world of residency and citizenship and all things investment migration. So if you're looking for international residency and citizenship, well, this is the podcast for you. Also, for those of you that are listening to us on YouTube, we invite you to leave your questions in the comments section below. And for those listening to the podcast, please email your queries to questions@globalpassportinvestor.com. So today we're going to the Far East. And we're really delighted to have Jennifer Lai, a dear friend and colleague, industry colleague for how long now? 15 years?
Roughly 15 years, yeah.
Going back to many travels throughout Hong Kong and, of course, China, which I will tell you a little bit more about for our anecdotes. But Jennifer has been involved in this investment migration business at different levels and different capacities. She's a world international traveler, lived in Canada. She studied in the United States, in Wisconsin, I just found out.
Yes.
I forgot that part of your story. I know that you worked at the embassy in Italy, so you picked up a bit of Italian along the way.
The consulate, in Hong Kong.
The consulate in Hong Kong.
Yes, the trade commission as well.
And of course, your love of all things Japanese, I know that. Thank you for the Japanese tea.
Welcome.
And yes, your connection through your father to Indonesia. Basically, a global citizen in all aspects. But I don't want to take away too much of the intro because I want you to explain a little bit about who you are and your experience with the residency and citizenship by investment industry. So how did it start for you?
Oh, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this podcast. Actually, I've been listening to it, and I found very interesting topic that you guys are sharing. I think it's very good to have such kind of YouTube or podcast because a lot of people, they don't have a lot of, accurate or good information.
Yeah,
right?
And it's just another channel. You know, that people are so busy, have busy lives. They may not have necessarily time to read the books and all the data and the academia that exists in this area, in this sector. So is a nice, convenient way to get snippets on certain countries and aspects of these programs. So you're right. It's been it's a new medium, but I'm enjoying it. Thanks. Yeah.
Well, I think going back, probably 10, 15 years ago, I think when I was working for another company, then also I run a little bit of my wine business at that time. So, and I think when Henley probably, that's where I met you.
That's
and
right.
then set up a operation in Asia. And then I got the invitation, so I want to give it a try. So that's how I started in the investment migration industry.
And what countries were popular at the time? I mean, China was such a big market, but I recall, you were obviously doing some U.S. and Canada, but the Caribbean programs are also coming into their own as well. So you did quite a bit of everything at the time, didn't you?
Yes, at that time. So I think that there's still, the investment migration industry, I think the offerings are not that many. So I think I remember I did St. Kitts. There was St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yes.
And then of course Hong Kong was part of, because at that time we have Hong Kong Capital Investment Entrance Scheme.
That's how we got connected as well, because I remember I was saying to someone the other day about the history of that when I was at HSBC, where not the pandemic, but the epidemic of SARS had brought the government at the time in Hong Kong to look at economic policy ways to bring some stimulus back into the city. And this was one of a few measures the government had implemented in 2003, 4?
2003, and then reformed in 2008, and
That's
then
right.
suspended 2015, and relaunched it again recently.
But it was highly successful from the beginning, I would say. towards the end of the program, I know you're quite active. Again, this was all about foreign nationals who want to become a resident in the city. It's always been the case. That's an 8-year journey to permanent residency.
7 years.
7 years. There you go. My mind escapes me. 7-year journey. It was mostly, initially, there was a real estate component, but they got that away, just like Portugal. They took that away because it had impacts on the housing. But it was essentially an investment or banking type of product at the time.
Yeah.
How has it changed now? Because it's done a relaunch.
Yeah.
What are we? We're in April, so basically just over a month ago.
Yes.
And I just found out from showing the picture on the government website, you were no less the very first to submit an application under this new revised program. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Did you? Is it complicated? Tell us how it works and what are the requirements that applicants would have today.
Okay. Well, so if you're looking for Hong Kong capital investment scheme, which is, I think you already explained it really well, I think Hong Kong government actually has launched 8 initiatives. Well, you probably heard about the single family office tax regime.
Yes.
Yeah, similar to the Singapore ones, and then Hong Kong, of course, launched that, and then after that is a capital investment scheme we call the new CIES.
Okay.
So I think from a professionals, we look at the scheme, we find that this is more, I would say, flexible compared to the old scheme, because you get more different options to invest. Of course, there's no more the property, the real estate for residential, but they add in the commercial property with the cap of 10 million Hong Kong.
Okay.
3 million Hong Kong dollar has to go to the Innovation Tech Fund, which is government will invest together with you. Okay. And then, of course, the rest of it can be anything in Hong Kong, like stock market, funds, insurance also. Yes. And then, so this is pretty much, I think, is the same as the old scheme, but they make it more flexible.
Yes, more flexible and maybe more different qualifying investments or assets.
Correct.
And as you say, in typical Hong Kong fashion, they brought this in tandem with a number of other measures to bring some stimuli into the economy. How would you say Hong Kong, the world went through a traumatic experience with the pandemic, and I think this was particularly hard in China. We know, the world knows. Hong Kong, I had a few friends who were there who also find it difficult. But now, 2 years hence, what's the sentiment like in the city? Is there a sense of renewed optimism post-pandemic? What's the general feeling? Because I know that you still live there.
Oh, yes. I still live there. Well, I think that it coming to, when you look at the incidents and then look at what's going on around the globe, I think it's not one factor that can tell how a jurisdiction's economy being impacted. You have to look at the holistic point of view. You see a lot of geopolitical risk. You see a lot of U.S.-China tension. You also notice economic recessions in around the world. So I think for Hong Kong, I think it goes through the same.
It's going through that right now.
Yeah, just like any countries in the world.
Yeah.
I would probably think what I'd like to comment is I think from my point of view, I've been traveling a lot, even though during pandemic. I've been traveling to China. I've been to Japan. I've been to Europe. You see a lot of countries have all these factors that actually affecting the economic situation because nobody's spending, right? And then nobody's spending. This is more like a domino kind of reactions, in fact.
Right. Yeah.
So I think for Hong Kong now, the government has launched these 8 initiatives. Indeed, there's something they would like to hope to come back, right?
Yes.
I would probably say that with the stability, the prosperity, that we are quite confident. We start seeing foreign capital coming into Hong Kong.
Yeah, it'll always be the gateway to China, won't it? It'll always be.
Yeah.
I mean, that infrastructure and the talent base that's there is such a powerful asset for the city. I don't see that changing, so that'll always draw a certain foreign FDI to the region. But it's good. I mean, we've seen countries ebb and flow with these with these economic cycles, in this case also geopolitical cycles. But if there's anything I've learned over the years in my dealing with that city is that once they decide on doing something, they find the right formula and they stick with it. And it happens, in the RCBI industry, Portugal, we all know, was going through, and Greece was going through tremendous difficulties with their property market after the financial crisis of
Yes,
08, 09. And some smart government teams got together and said, well, what are the measures we're going to bring? And they brought in this golden visa, which has totally reversed the storyline. The property prices are almost too high now. Everyone's complaining, and that's why they did away from that. So I think, like we saw after SARS, where the whole city stopped for a couple of months. I remember that. It was a ghost town. But this and a few measures that they brought at the time quickly revitalize that and change that. I think these kind of measures should do the same, but you're right that the geopolitical tensions between the U.S. and China are real. But if you're going to set up a base in Asia, I still think it's in the top 3 places you got to be in.
Well, yeah, I think when specifically we are in the investment migration industry, right? So I think there were different, I would say, group of people that we are targeting, or maybe we are actually providing service to. We see the inbound, we also see the outbound. The outbound is someone, I think, with the education concerns, with the quality of life concern, and then they will probably choose the traditional countries like Canada, maybe Australia.
But you're also seeing outbound and then inbound back.
Yes.
So let's talk about that, because we both have a connection to Canada. I know your daughter is studying there. I and you, to some extent, we all got very busy helping a lot of people migrate there. But some of them done fairly well over time, and they're realizing the tax challenges that the U.S. or Canada have. And so they think back to maybe their homeland or just going back to Asia, both from a lifestyle, cultural, but also business point of view, and of course tax point of view. So I could see how this new CIS plays in maybe on the tax residency side of angle. Do you agree with that? Because I think some of these North Americans that may have come from Asia are, if they're going to be heading back there for personal or business reasons, could well be attracted by something like this.
Correct. So I think the what we were mentioning about because the OECD or a lot of EU, and then also I think US and then UK, we are all actually, I would probably say the whole investment migration industry, we are all looking for the transparency and compliance. And OECD has launched the CRS a couple of years ago.
That's right.
And then we are nowadays, I think if the professional service industry players, we all know that the tax residence is very important for wealth succession planning. So we see clients from the North Americans coming to Hong Kong. The reason why that CIS is attractive is because the Hong Kong actually launched the top talent visa 2 years ago too, right? Well, I think 2 years ago, and then that's basically to attract the talents coming to Hong Kong to fill in the labor market, which is we need the senior, the management, or maybe officials. The senior position in the company.
Executives, basically.
But we still need capitals, just like any FDI for any countries, right? So the CIS will help to deliver that together with the single family office scheme of Hong Kong. And then the tax resident, I would say, of course, tax resident based on where is your residency and are you a taxpayer of the jurisdictions. That I think a lot of clients realize that, so they will come in and live or maybe a certain time in Hong Kong to hopefully to reach that. The other thing is the new CIS has a very interesting scheme which is different from the rest of top talent visa, quality migrant, or the entrepreneur by investment visa. Basically means is, so they actually, so you know that it's like 7 years, you get a PR.
That's right.
The PR is definitely kind of a set of rules.
Yeah.
But for the visa to be renewed, you will need to to provide different conditions, right? Apply for the visa.
Requirements along the way.
Yeah, but then CIS actually they don't. So you just
maintain the investment.
Maintain the investment, maintain the requirement as to what the government has launched the requirement, and then your visa will be renewed. So that gives a lot of flexibility. And the most important is at the 7th year,
Yeah.
the 7 years, you get the visa called unconditional stay visa. What's that? Basically, that's the visa that you don't need to renew anymore. You are the Hong Kong resident indefinitely, and then you can actually sell
leave
your
and
asset.
come back. You could always come back, or
Yeah.
you could leave as well. You have a permanent stay.
And then your
Right.
asset, you can be actually selling all the stocks and investment. You can cash out. So that gives that flexibility to those people who are not being able to reside in Hong Kong, like any, I think, happened when we moved to Canada, right?
Yeah.
We need to fulfill 5 years. You need to live that 3 years in order to become a Canadian. That, or maybe 730 days to maintain the PR status.
So you're saying that the CIS doesn't have any prescribed number of days tied to it during this temporary phase? Obviously, to get PR, I think in the final year, you probably have to show some connection.
For the 7 years, if you were, well, for anyone who wants to get to the Hong Kong PR, they are looking is that if you are ordinary resident of Hong Kong. Ordinary resident basically means is Hong Kong your permanent home? Right? A permanent home, like you and I, we are both like world travelers. We don't live there 6 months a year, right?
Exactly.
But we have a home there. We are taxpayer, and then we actually have our local, I think, community and ties there. Of course, that will qualify. But it's more like a holistic approach that when they look at the 7 years journey. But with the easy and simplicity of this new CIS is to renew the visa.
Yeah, exactly. Well, before we get on with the next question, I do want to remind those who are viewing us on YouTube to leave your questions in the comment section below. And if you're listening to the podcast, we invite you to email us at questions@globalpassportinvestor.com.
The greatest investment you could ever make is an investment in your future. Rift Trust and Latitude Group is the leading provider of residency and citizenship solutions for high net worth individuals.
Our clients are like our extended family. We're a global firm with a local focus.
What makes us truly unique is our leadership team. 100 years of combined industry experience, and we're working every day with governments to improve and build new residency and citizenship programs.
Obtaining a second residence or citizenship is the best modern insurance policy for you and your family.
Our clients
Expect the world.
We deliver it.
Hello to freedom.
So listen, again, Jennifer, I'm so impressed that you were no less the first person to submit an application. That's a great honor, I'm sure, for the government to have received it. I've heard that they launched it on March the 1st. They have received a fairly interesting level of interest, would you say?
Yeah,
I mean,
actually.
for a relaunch?
Yeah, so the government actually, the launch, the starting day to accept applications is March 1st, and up till now they have received 50 applications according to the news. And then, of course, there are a couple thousand of inquiries. They have their own office now in the Inland Revenue Tower.
Oh, I see. So they have a dedicated unit for this?
Yes.
Yeah, because you and I know, I mean, that's a critical element to efficiency, that they have a dedicated set of resources. Otherwise, these applications could take a long time to get a decision. What's the expectation right now? I mean, it's early days, but like for that first case, you expect that you could hear back from them in 4 months, 6 months, 9 months? What's the expectation?
Well, I think government invests, because this scheme is now a little bit different than previously. It's not just the Hong Kong immigration will take care of that. It's also Invest Hong Kong will participate in that, because CIS team is under Invest Hong Kong now. So their role and responsibility is to assess
the investment.
assess because you have to prove that you have an asset and wealth of assets of 30 million Hong Kong dollar for the past 2 years preceding the application, right? So this job for them to assess the investment is Invest Hong Kong, the new CIS team under the Invest Hong Kong. Then the Hong Kong immigration is to issue the visa. But I would say they're very efficient now, because I think just like any countries now, with Caribbean, the Portugal, Greece, or even with Malta, I think the efficiency is really important to the scheme.
And no more efficient people than government and city than my favorite, Hong Kong. I mean, that I have no doubt, even in the later years of that very popular program, and they had massive demand in applications. They still managed to get it done, certainly by European standards, at a reasonable time frame.
Yes.
So I'm sure that will continue. And again, I'll say it for the record, I have no doubt that these 8 measures that they've announced is going to make the needle shift in favor of Hong Kong. I think the only liability risk is whether these geopolitical tensions get worse, but if they just hold and let people run business as usual and live their lives as usual, then the economics of the economic impact of these measures, I'm sure, will be seen very quickly. So that's exciting in my perspective.
Also exciting for all of our professional industry players in Hong Kong.
Yes,
because that
indeed.
whole programs actually involve the CPAs,
Yes.
The law firms,
The law
and
firms,
then
yeah.
right, and then also us,
Yep.
and then also the financial institutions.
Yep.
So I think this will benefit the local economy and then practitioners
Excellent. And just
and clients.
so that the audience know, I know I have both potential clients that listen to this, but also our partners in business. Jennifer is being based there, and given the long-standing relationship, Latitude would work with Jennifer to submit these applications and interface with the government agency, basically. So that's the nature of the relationship. And we
Thank you.
interviewed a lot of people who help us at different parts of the world, and we're so glad that this program is back. It's brought us back together, given our long history of working together. So that's really exciting. Jennifer, is there anything else about the program that we need to know? Obviously, it is segmenting a higher value client than the old program. That's clear.
30 million, yes.
30 million is not a small number. It's a 7-year journey. Remind me the period of visa term for each.
Oh yeah, okay.
How does that work?
So the one thing I wanted to emphasize, of course, that the 30 million has to be under your personal name for the past 2 years preceding the application.
Right.
One thing is different now is basically they will need the CPA,
Okay.
Certified Public Accountants
That-
in Hong
at
Kong
home.
to verify and
To validate.
validate the assets. So
Yeah,
this is
that's before.
one thing really good, I think, is making the whole thing more, I would say, more
Reliable,
solid, right? Reliable.
Reliable. Yeah.
Yeah, this is what we want to see too.
Yes, because you want it to be sustainable, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think sustainability is a key for the programs. And then the other thing is, I think the visa actually has to be simplified for the renewal. Previously, it's 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, 2 years. Now
Yeah.
it comes down to 2 plus 3 plus 2 plus 3 plus 3.
Okay.
So then
That's
that's save one time. So
Well, that's good. Save one time, but that's one less time going to the bureaucracy, which is great, because
Great.
I think that's the only thing that still bugs me with Portugal, for example, that it's 2 plus 2 plus 2. Why not do like Malta? Just give a 5-year card.
Yeah.
Why not give even like the old UK investor was 3 plus 2? Okay, 2 visits as opposed to 5 or 3 or 4. Anyway, so that's a good measure. And is there a need to having a physical abode? Do they have to have an address in Hong Kong as part of the requirements? I mean, there's an investment element to this,
yeah.
but they need to have some lease agreement to live somewhere?
Okay, for the new CIS scheme, just to renew, there's no such requirement. The requirement basically is if you maintain the 30 million Hong Kong dollar in.
So no residential or address component.
Yes. However,
Yeah,
if you are, a lot of clients now they wanted to go for the permanent residence
That's
of
right.
Hong Kong, because
You
then
don't
you
need
don't need to renew anymore, right?
That's right.
And then also for the PR that leads to the Hong Kong passport. Well,
Yes.
depends on if you want it or not. That is a total different assessment.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that assessment basically is ordinary resident of Hong Kong for 7 years. Then they start looking at, are you a taxpayer of Hong Kong?
Yes.
Do you have your mandatory provident fund?
Yes.
And do you have an address in Hong Kong? Where's your kids go to school? Or where's your spouse live?
Yes. Yes.
So
yes.
basically, it's very similar to the UK. Well, I think probably it couldn't be a UK.
Yeah, but I would say you're right. I was going to make that analogy. You could say UK. You could say a lot of these programs, even in Portugal, or Spain, or Greece, where these visas or residence permit are temporary.
Yeah.
They're temporary. They got to be renewed, and it's only if you meet certain criteria can it become permanent. Like in the case of the UK, show me that you spent at least 6 months per year. You pass the life in the UK test. And then there could be a whole new other set of requirements for citizenship.
Correct.
Which
yeah.
is, not 6 months per year in the UK, 9 months per year for 5 years, and then et cetera. So you're very right in having to discuss, at least address with the client, listen, it's a temporary visa. It renews automatically if you maintain the investment. But if your ultimate goal is permanent residence, then you're going to have to show some other ties and some other connections,
Yes.
right? And of course, even citizenship. So that's probably the most important thing I would leave with our listeners to understand is understanding what it is you actually get for the investment and what's the pathway to getting either permanent residency or citizenship.
Yeah. I just want to add one thing is the reason why I think a lot of clients probably we understand this because we are professionals. A lot of clients, I think that I have seen in the past 15 years, they don't really understand the differences of residency, permanent residency, PR with a condition, or the citizenship.
That's right.
Even myself, I remember, I just want to share a
Yes.
story with you. I remember when I applied the US tourist visa when at my university time. When I go to the forms, there's a part which writes, what's your nationality? At the time, I think, still with, that time, I wrote Hong Kong, right? So, and then they said, sorry, no, you are not Hong Kong because you are a stateless person.
Yeah.
I was like, why am I stateless? Because Hong Kong is never a country.
Separate country.
But of course, that was back in university time. That was like long time ago. Then I said, wow. Then I realized, okay, so my nationality should be Chinese or Hong Kong SAR, right? Or
Yes.
Chinese.
Correct.
And
Correct.
this why I think this is very important is a lot of time when I face the high net worth individuals or families, when they apply,
They don't know that nuance.
yes, Portugal, Greece, or maybe Malta, or even like Canada, UK, they don't understand the differences of all these three
Yes.
things.
Yes.
So for me, and then I start to realize, okay, stateless, I am actually a PR of Hong Kong. I have a Hong Kong passport, but it doesn't make me a citizen, right? In that sense, when I fill in the forms, right?
Of course.
So because different countries see things differently.
Oh, totally.
So when we apply for our clients, we probably have to really tell, I always ask the client, what do you want? Do you want a PR at the end of, let's for example, Hong Kong in this case, you want to get a permanent residency, so you were able to qualify to apply for a Hong Kong passport, or you just wanted to have a residency, give you the access easy in our Hong Kong. Totally
exactly.
different,
Totally
right?
different.
Same
Totally
thing for
different.
Portugal. Language or the at these years year 5, can you apply for citizenship? This is totally different things.
Yeah.
If you look at the Canada, right? Canada, if you don't stay there 730 days, your PR, the Maple Cup, maybe.
Yeah, you may lose it. So what is a permanent residence card isn't that permanent if when it expires in 5 years and you want to renew it, if you didn't do the 730 days out of the 5-year period. So you're right. And that's where, again, people get confused.
Yeah,
But-
like Singapore is the same thing.
and you said it right earlier, temporary, permanent, but you could lose it, permanent.
Permanent.
And then citizenship is always the final pinnacle. And in that, I'd even add citizenship, but if you're citizenship of EU, then 1 equals 27.
Yeah.
Because now you have these settlement rights in all 27. So the EU will always be the pinnacle in our business. And I'd even add for those from Ireland, always proud to say Ireland's probably the best passport in the world because it's not just EU right of settlement, but it's also right of settlement in the UK.
Yes.
So it's the only one that has a pre-Brexit story. And they're pretty good people and they speak English.
Yes.
So interesting.
Education and all that.
But Hong Kong has its place. This is why you're on this show. It has its place, first of all, because it's an important part of Asia, which I have a fondness towards, but also because of the commercial and business interests that lie in that part of the world for many people, and it's an attractive tax regime. So we get a lot of people who are about to experience a wealth event, something they know that in 6, 12, 18, 24 months, I'm going to make a lot of money because I'm going to be selling this or Bitcoin or whatever. And they think, but I don't want to be in Canada when that happens. When I crystallize the gain, I have to be in a jurisdiction that is tax friendly when I crystallize that gain, because then I'll be taxed on it competitively. And so when we look at this from a tax residency point of view, you have a few places in Europe, you have the Caribbean, and you have Dubai, where we are today, but you have Hong Kong and you have Singapore as well. That's in that space. But
In
Hong
Asia,
Kong, and Hong Kong has its place there, and it's always a great city to go visit. I'm long overdue to come and see you. So,
yes. Thank you.
Jennifer, before we let you go, ECIS, ECIS is the company,
Yes.
right? E for ethics.
C for commitment, because we
Yes.
need to have a commitment to lead all the clients, hand-holding services. I think positive impact is something that I think we probably wanted to
Yes.
make happen in the industry, because we wanted to have all the professional industry players in the industry, so
Yes.
the client will get benefit from it.
Exactly.
And sustainability, I think nowadays,
Yes.
like you mentioned earlier, I think tax resident is something a lot of clients are looking at. Don't forget, tax compliance is also very important.
Excellent. Well, I wish you luck. I know you just launched that. Perfect timing with the arrival of the new CIS. I'm so glad that the weather has quieted it a little bit, and we see actually the backdrop of the city, because a few minutes ago it was a deluge of rain, something I'm sure that you're used to in Hong Kong with your typhoons. But
Signal number 10.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I've been in these typhoon 10s in the city. My goodness, it's pretty aggressive. But they're not equipped like in Hong Kong to deal with it here. Hey, we needed a boat. You needed a boat almost to come to the office.
Yes. A speedboat.
A speedboat
So I
to
don't
get
get,
it, so you don't
get
get
here
late.
late.
Exactly. No, but kidding aside, I had a question for you, because when I saw the statistic being published that the government had really strong interest for the program as it launched it just last month, that they had over 50 cases. Do you have a sense of where these applicants may have come from? Or more relevantly, where do you think demand for the CIS could come from?
We do see, of course, the interest coming from abroad. Of course, we have like Chinese, Taiwanese, South Korean, and also, interestingly, some Canadian as well.
Yes.
Yeah, because Canadian, I would say probably living the Canadian Chinese.
Yes.
But they're looking for coming back to Asia.
Yes.
So then Hong Kong is also a
A natural destination.
natural destination because of business previously.
Yes. Yeah, and it may still have some
Connections.
connections and ties. Like I say, if you have any commercial enterprise or commercial activity in Asia, it's obviously certainly a top 3 place people would think about. Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore is
Yes.
generally where people would say to create their footings. But these kind of programs bring some interest and attraction in drawing them. And we touched how some of them may have a wealth effect coming up, and they want to choose a tax efficient place to become tax resident. So in essence, this program makes them a resident. If they also have their connection by living
Yes,
there,
yeah.
then they could also avail themselves of what is the tax regime? Is it still 15 or 16% on personal income tax?
Yeah, so basically Hong Kong abolished the inheritance tax.
Oh,
Yeah, so
that's right.
there's none, no
That's
capital gain tax, and then there's a new tax regime for the single family office.
Yes.
And then for I think the personal income tax about 16.5.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's
Okay.
quite, I would say, tax friendly.
Yeah, it
They
is.
don't impose any tax if you do a trading on stocks and everything. So I
Okay.
think that's why a lot of personal professional investors they also
They set up there.
enjoy the tax friendly regime.
No, exactly. And I know a few people who've done that. Before I let you go, we have this little part of the show called Anecdota Time, where we ask our guests if they would so kindly share an anecdote, a story, something funny, something interesting that happened either to you that's linked to the industry or not, to clients. Is there anything in your vast experience in this industry that you want to share with the audience that you find unique?
I think I shared it of feeling the form when I was a student. I didn't know that. I didn't know I was.
Oh, that's the anecdotal one.
I was.
Okay.
I started earlier, but I was like,
Yeah.
I would think that.
Yes.
Well, I would know how to fill the form, right? I'm well educated.
That's-
And you ask for my education, and then I feel it wrong.
Yeah.
So I think all these little details actually very important for anyone in the industry,
Well,
right?
and that's a good one. My equivalent to that is coming from North America, and Europe is so complicated. They have EU, EEC, EEA, you got Schengen area, UK Common Travel Area, all these different arrangements, associations, agreements. But the Schengen area in our business is very important, but most North Americans wouldn't know, and nor would they need to. They have passports that give you access to Europe. But for me, it took me a while to figure out what is this Schengen area thing, and how it became very important, certainly in this part of the world and also in Asia. Listen, Jennifer, always a delight to connect with you and to have this session today. I hope you could come back and visit us. Maybe in a year's time we could do a recap of how the program has gone, and maybe we'll do it in Hong Kong. That'll be an excuse to come and see you.
Yes. Thank you very much for having me today. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you coming, and enjoy the IMC conference, which I know we will be bumping into each other there. And to you listeners, thank you for joining us today. Please come and see us again at the next Global Passport Investor.
Thank you.
Yay!
Is it good?
Yeah. First take. 30. We hope that you're enjoying the show and that listening to my guests and I discuss golden passports and golden visas has got you interested in international residency and citizenship. For a deep dive into the recommended residency and citizenship programs available, please check out latitudeworld.com for further details.